We're still on the tragic incident that occurred at the Anglo Gold Ashanti mine. I'll play you a quick audio where Colonel retired Festus Obuasi has been telling Channel One News what needs to be done to deal with this growing risk of clashes between between miners, illegal miners, and security forces.
I think the timing of the incident is quite significant in the sense that it's only a couple of weeks ago since the new administration came into office. But in another context, it also serves as a signal to the government that the mining sector, be they the concessions or be they illegal mining, river bodies, forest reserves, constitute one significant risk that it needs to tackle seriously. That we have allowed that sector to be uncontrolled, obviously for partisan political reasons. And this incident draws attention to the need for the government as quickly or as soon as it can, to set in motion some processes to bring some sanity, some calm, some control, in that area. Now, having said that, when 7, arguably 9, reported by one channel, die, I have doubts as to whether the appropriate rules of engagement were used. But 7 captures or 7 fatalities or 9 fatalities is one too many. But because the conflicting narratives, the narratives of the people who have spoken on the ground at Obuasi, admitting that they were going to find something to eat at 10 p.m. and were at a concession carrying hammers, there's something mysterious or mischievous about that. And of course, we've heard from the armed forces saying that they also received fire from pump action guns and they suffered one petrol. So when we know what the true narrative is, then we'll be able to discuss whether the use of force, which resulted in 7 or 9 fatalities, is indeed permissible. But on the surface of it, I think a higher threshold force was used that may not have necessarily or may not have been necessary.
Now, do you think this incident has any impact at all in security as far as mining companies are concerned moving forward?
Well, I think in other reports or reportage, this incident is not this type of incident is not the first. The invasion of concessions is not the first. It's happened before. But I'm not too sure. I can't remember exactly when it happened. When the people found themselves underground in the shaft and were refusing to come to the surface, as was recently, or it's still the case, for instance, in South Africa. So the whole idea is that some sectors of our socio-economic, political existence in this, that we have allowed to go on and on and on out of control.
Could this have been avoided given the fact that this is not the first time such an incident is happening, even at various mining sites across the country?
Well, it could have been avoided if the youth, for whatever reason, exercise caution that hunger and unemployment do not necessarily mean that one can take the law into their hands. And the idea is, if they want to test, and this could be a test case, to test the resolve of the new administration as to whether it might cave in if they went in as they had done before. That test was unnecessary. So the whole importance or significance of this incident is that it draws attention to some of the security challenges that the government must, as soon as possible, address itself. Besides the Boku, conflict, other chieftaincy, today the German people are also calling attention to chieftaincy disputes. This mining sector, the Galamsey, has not gone away. It's only that we have not seen any major incident. Until now, we are seeing this invasion of the concession, which is an investment that has been made by an economic partner. It needs to be protected or safeguarded.
So that was Colonel Retired First Abuaji highlighting some of the dire issues that have to be dealt with there. And I'll come back to this topic shortly because as I spoke to the reporter, there appears to be two conflicting reports on what happened. The president has rightly so ordered for a full investigation into the issue, because while the company and the soldiers are saying one thing, the reporter is telling us that the miners are also telling them different things. And in the community, the information they have is that unarmed people were shot, but the soldiers and the company are saying it was a confrontation and there was a shot from the miners first. So this is what we are told. So it's we have to tread cautiously.
I don't know about that.
You sure?
But, no. Two things for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We need to understand why we have these clashes happening at this period. I told last year when we were having the discussions about illegal mining, Galamsey, just the mining regime and everything, I told you that the danger was that we were going to have clashes, if you recall, between these so-called informal mining communities or mining groups and the established mining companies, just because of the general situation of their livelihoods and how desperate it had become. And so we're going to get a lot more. Now, if you look at our accounts from the past 2 years, last year alone, there were 7 of those clashes that we could count or that we reported on. To start this year, we've had one that is being investigated, but I think we can safely say there was a clash somewhere. Okay. We also need to fix the bigger problem of the imbalances in the resource-rich areas. And that has been clearly established.
Okay.
You fix that, you don't have persons put themselves in danger
for working for even these formal mining companies.
Exactly. Because there is a certain level of understanding that what we own as a community benefits the community. And again, we've spoken about this. I don't know Obuasi too well. Samens knows Obuasi well. You know Obuasi well. If I look at Obuasi, that digs gold, and anybody who has been to the Republic of South Africa and you visited the city of Rustenburg, and they tell you that in this city we dig this resource here, and in Obuasi we dig this resource here, you ask yourself what happened. In fact, if you look at Johannesburg itself and you look at Obuasi and the sheer value of gold that has been taken from Obuasi, and you look at the state of Obuasi, you will understand where the growing anger is coming from.
Fair enough.
And it is something that needs to be dealt with by the state in its engagement with its partners. It's not something that can just, it's something that traditional authorities as well need to deal with.
So it's a deeper issue.
It's
beyond
a much deeper issue.
One clash. We should look at the various clashes and then the issues around what is leading to this.
Because we've had these clashes, and I told you last year, we will have more. Because it's not like the entities that are removing the resources are getting any poorer. Some of them are getting bigger. They are entrenched in the faces of these persons. Now, what these persons are doing is also not legal. But there's a much bigger problem to be solved before we can even come and deal with matters of legality, because it will persist. They are not going to stop. I hope you understand. They are not going to stop. Two, to deal with, I also need to ask about why we seem to have so many small arms in the system.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to have a gun, especially in those areas.
Yeah.
Last week, there was a report that a colleague of ours who works at Multimedia was attacked.
This was actually December 20, but the report came out last week.
Last week, yes, had been attacked. I don't know. I hope he's well. But from the reports that we read, it tells you again the lengths to which these persons are willing to go to protect these areas and to engage in these acts.
Yep.
So for me, it's good the president has asked for an independent investigation into the matter. But I also say it has been clear for a very long time what the deeper problems are. Okay. And until those deeper problems are dealt with, soldiers are not going to leave their protection posts at AGA. There's a reason why they are there. No, why were they brought there in the first place?
Clearly, there's an insecurity situation.
Yes. Have soldiers always protected AGA? I don't know. Sometimes have soldiers always been there when you go
in and
there?
out?
In and out.
Yeah, in and out.
So depending on the situation they find themselves in, because the update from the armed forces tells us that these were officers from Operation Halt 2.
Yep. The more recent one.
Operation Halt 2.
Not 4BN necessarily.
Yes.
Not 4BN necessarily.
No. Just they are officers from Operation Halt. What is Operation Halt?
Yes.
Exactly. Everybody knows what Operation Halt is, I'm sure.
Yes. For those who've been following the Galamsey reporting.
Yes. So these were officers from Operation Halt stationed at the mine. So that tells you that the mine has always had concerns about these clashes, and they've been going on for a while.
Yeah.
So they need to fix. I've heard, the other reports about something might have, but I have no evidence.
Governor, the only thing I need to say sort of is that, to be fair, the mining companies do engage these communities. We know the process for which concessions are granted. There are always a community engagement, whether it's Newmont or Goldfields, we do, or Ashanti Gold, Anglo Gold. We also have been told that in this specific case, the company has considered about 70% of its concession to the community already.
Yes.
So you're right. There are underlying economic factors which are driving the security issues, some of which are beyond the mining company.
Yes.
So if you look at, for example, some of these companies that operate in Ghana also operate in South Africa and Australia. What tends to happen is that the governments and the laws around the way mining
resources are allocated
are different.
Yes.
So if you have a situation of better governance, better economic governance, generally the poverty that we see in communities in Africa doesn't persist in these places that I'm referring to. So you're right, the nation needs to take a closer look at the way we manage our natural resources, which does not inure to the benefit of those who are within the immediate precincts. Oil, you can say the same as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm saying it's not just the mining company and what it does in terms of community outreach.
Yeah.
The government, and in fact,
that was why I mentioned traditional authorities.
We need a national dialogue on resources and how to reallocate them.
Because
we also need a conversation about the regime. We call it the laws that initially sort of the contracts that we sign with the companies through a 30-40 year period. Are these inuring to our benefit as a society?
The reason why I mentioned the traditional authorities is per our law, a certain percentage of the resources are paid back to the traditional authority. I think I need to check my documents. I think it's 10% or something. At what periods are they paid? Are they actually paid? It's because it's paid from the government to the traditional authority. What are they used for? do we need to increase the percentages? Those are the significant conversations that need to be had around this situation. Otherwise, we'll just keep reporting on there's been a clash between A, B, C, and D, and somebody will get shot, we'll investigate it, arrest a few people, jail a few people, but the clashes are not going away.
Well,
they will return. Because the people are also not going anywhere.
So there are economic issues, there are security issues, and there's been an investigation ordered. A quick comment from you before I move to another issue.
I just think that, just to add to what you've said, is that we mining largely is international business. And so as a country, we need to figure out our realities well, that we cannot as a country deal with international business like we deal with retail businesses. If we are giving out concessions, we need to understand what it means to let out concessions. And if people put in their money as international businesses, the system should be able to protect their investment. I think we can say any and everything. We can't skip this portion.
Yep.
Because it is what actually generates businesses in these areas. Then we can now come to the point that Godfred made in terms of allocation of resources, who gets what and how they are put to good use or otherwise. And I think that's where, but you see, we can't discuss this thing without discussing the security threats that exist for mining companies.
Yep.
Because once they have secured a concession, it has to be protected.
Yeah.
Apart from all the issues we are discussing, I think there's a certain prevailing threat to mining companies that doesn't seem to go away.
Yeah.
Because frankly, why would a mining company invite the military?
Clearly, the business, the environment has become more risky for them, even security-wise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we need to look at it. I mean, it doesn't give anybody the mandate to be reckless.
Yeah.
That point must be made.
No, I think you are so right. You know, I think in Ghana right now, what's happening is that we are in a development stage where citizens are not benefiting from the economic model, and therefore they are agitating.
Yes.
The government also wants investment, and that investment needs a certain assurance to come. So if we can't raise domestic capital, we need foreign investment. Now the question for most developing countries is, how do you balance what the investor needs, the safe environment, the stability, the security, with the resource also being allocated for the community to be happy? That's the main question this government faces. So, and it's funny, just to wrap this up, so it looks like in many sectors the government needs to do a proper national dialogue, because we are going to reset. You formed a constitution review committee to look at the constitution by way of reset. It's very clear that today, during the vetting, the Minister for Education will be asked about free SHS and review of the educational sector. The President has already said we'll review. I think there must be a review also of our mining regime generally, okay, or even resource, because not even mining alone, electrochem, salt. I think where people live and there's a resource close to them, the perception they have about what the resource should do, and so it's gas, oil, you get it. So I feel like there needs to be also a review or some national dialogue around resource extraction. All right,
and appropriation.
Yes. So chiefs, the research people, and the communities and the government must all come together to speak about this.
I think politicians must also be careful about what they promise the communities. I mean, you are a politician, you want to become a member of parliament, and you go promising communities
jobs or something,
things that don't lie within your power. Okay. I mean, even with this Obuasi thing, I've seen videos of politicians who have gone there, making claims that they will fight the people. We are in government, so the government is for us, so we have to do, in the middle of this. See, the presidency has issued a statement. If I were you, I'll wait and take a cue from what the big men up there say, before I move, you go and muddy the waters. You make it difficult for us to resolve it.
Very important points. A few additional issues before we move to what else? Quickly.
It appears this is the global challenge, though, for many mining companies.
Okay.
I'm looking at the World Economic Forum's platform, and mining companies say their number one risk is the trust deficit they have with local communities. So mining companies have acknowledged for the second year in a row that their trust deficit with affected communities, that is the lack of a social license to operate, is their number one risk. So they may have the licenses, which
is the legal,
yes, but the social license to operate is one of the things that many of the mining communities are dealing with. So you have issues of local employment, local procurement, post-closure plans. I don't know what that means, frankly.
It means when you leave the community, what do you do? Because you've destroyed post-agricultural lands, livelihoods have gone. And I think the points you raise actually are the key subtopics for any discussion that needs to be done, where you're talking about local employment, local procurement. Because the issue with mining is that what the real value is not just people working in a mine. There are mining services companies, and a lot of the mines need procurement, whether it's food or transports. Now, what tends to happen is that a lot of the local communities are not able to take advantage of those opportunities. So one of the things the government could do is to encourage locals along the value chain pipeline from all, because you see, this is the same thing in oil and gas. A lot of people look at, employ my son in a mine, but from cleaning to providing food to safety to explosives, there's a lot. And indeed, I was at a program where they were mentioning the various possible jobs in the mining value chain. One of the things Ghana could have done was to position itself for smaller companies within the locality to raise their level to benefit from those. Because once you add local procurement, people have an ownership. If 30% of the people employed in the mining chain have their businesses in and around the Obuasi area, the community can see it. Do you get it? So, for example, maybe I live at a place close to Obuasi. I go to an Assemblies of God church. My assistant choir director works in a mine. My keyboardist company supplies them with food. My uncle has... Do you understand? When the community begins to feel part of the chain, they will even alert the company that some people have come in to come and attack you. But what we've created is that with our resources, we've created enclave businesses. Right? So that's why in 2011... your economy grew by almost 14%. Nobody felt it. Somebody comes in, puts an oil rig on a sea, he exploits oil, he makes a lot of money, pays government a big tax, and goes away with the rest of the change. Most of the people on are expatriates. That model is 1945. You get it? Now we have people who have PhDs. We also can speak English. Yes, we can bring foreign consultants in. We need a different conversation about investment. The truth is that what keeps Africa underdeveloped is lack of capital. The Western countries still control global capital, and when they deploy that capital is very cultural. The money does what they want it to do. Now, if you don't have a solution to raising capital, you can't govern successfully any small African country, because francophone countries are upset. A lot of countries in the Congo area, because they cannot see the benefits. A lot of the development of Europe is based on exploiting. You bring the capital in at very low cost, you have a high return, and then you use the money to do what you want to do. Africans are no longer going to accept that. And our leaders have to come up with a new model. China have developed theirs, right? China have a new system of governance where they've used the state to compete for its resources against private capital. But is our state functional? Look at what's happening with our state. We've changed government. People are chasing people out. You can't build a strong state to do economic governance when you are so fickle with policy continuity. You get it? So I think some of our politics impedes the way we manage our state. And if our state is not strong, it cannot regulate properly, it cannot allocate properly, which is why the cycle continues. So this reset thing, this government has a very big job to do. We can only wish them well.
I have a bit to say about that, because especially on what Caleb said about the social license. It's the most important part, because like you said, these people will help you, but the problem is the way mining is now, the way our people mine, the Galamsey people mine, and the mining companies mine, there's too big a technology gap. So they are not even useful to the mining companies, which is why the mining companies, they don't want to invest in training these people, upskilling them, giving them the technology to help them, because they are thinking to themselves, what's the point? It's probably cheaper to bring people in who already know the thing. So I think the part I'm saying that they need to work with the local people to give them more jobs, involve them in the process is important. But from the mining company's perspective, it doesn't make sense.
The gap is
so which is where the government has to come in and enforce it and make them do it.
Just to add though that Bernard, besides the lack of local employment and all of that, the activities of the mines will impact the air quality in the communities where they are mining. Water quality will be an issue, and the quantity of same will be an issue. So while you are looking at all the mining prospects you are looking at, the people are also, besides the employment and monetary gain, are looking at the environmental impact you are having in their communities. So on all these coalesce into the sentiments we see that degenerates the way we see it.